Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Satsang. Let's make some silence first. Despite what your mind tells you, despite what your fears compel you, despite what your desires entice you, there's nothing important enough for you to give attention. Dreams subside for the dreamer alone. Without the dreamer, dreams disappear. Learn to close your eyes to the dream, all dreams. To those dreams that appear in what you call dream state, and those dreams that appear in what you call awakened state. Go back to silence and stay there. Stay there. So once again, good morning everyone. Welcome. Just reminding you that we use WhatsApp as a means of communication. You can send your questions directly. The number appears on the comments. So I will use a metaphor to explain a little bit the mechanics. And more or less like spiritual process is more or less like driving a car. But the difference is the car, the motor running, and you actually driving the car, and the motor stopped, and you just inside. You can steer the wheel, you can shift gears, you can even produce the sound, but that doesn't mean you're moving anywhere. And usually, this is what happens. You get inside the car and you're turning the wheel and you're shifting the gears, but you look around, everything is the same. You don't feel the engine beneath you. You don't feel the acceleration. You don't see the power of the engine going and taking you. Everything is standing still. Your surroundings are similar, outwardly, inwardly. Everything is more or less the same. And if by chance anything is changing, it is by the fruits of adaptation and control, and not of transformation. Intense meditation brings transformation, transformation of what is there, of the conditionings, dissolving the conditionings. So, for what you know yourself to be, it is the collection of those observable conditionings, the ones you can observe, plus the others that you can't. So, this is what you classify as yourself. What is the knowable? What is your normal? It is conditioned to this, your previous knowledge of how, of what your normal is, and how you deal with things, react to things, how you feel yourself, more or less. That describes your normal, the set of observable conditionings. So when you're trying to uplift yourself, change yourself according to spiritual teachings, you're exerting control over those conditionings. And you're probably, in most of the cases, creating more conditionings, a different set of new conditionings on top of the other existing conditionings. And that is completely different. So you're building something according to an image that you believe, but that's not the spiritual process. That's not the life of it. It is the car with the engine stopped, and you're just steering the wheel, shifting the gears, and that's it. And whatever changes appear to happen by conditioning, it doesn't take you very far. And they just add to the condition. And this is what happens with a mild spiritual practice, which for many it is already a lot. No point even speaking about in the absence of meditation. It's not that easy. You see, modern cars, they have electric starts and all of that. But previous to that, where they didn't, you had to use a handle. And it wasn't that easy. But as for the life of the process, it is even much more difficult to make it, to get the engine to start. Because it's not something that you go and push a button, then you can forget about it. It gives a lot of work and it requires most of your attention, if not all. So it's very easy to just kick it one or two times and then just sitting on the wheel and stare it, because that kicking is not making anything. But everybody just want to drive, and they haven't seen a car with the engine working and moving. They have never driven one. So sitting behind the wheels and shifting gears, that must be it. But it isn't. So there are certain signs that tell you that, well, things are not moving, because you don't know what is the intensity of the life of the process. So without knowing that, how can you tell? Well, it's more or less everything is known. Environments are not changing, inner ones, outer ones. Everything is more or less the same. And your work, yes, you may be more proficient at exerting control. And I will not dismiss control entirely, it is important. In the sense of holding on not to engage in the old habits, this is important. But by itself only, not enough. It's more of a tool not to ruin your work than actually to do any work. So it's different. It is the intensity of meditation that kickstarts the engine, makes it work, and then things start happening, whatever that means. So when you really start moving, your surroundings will change. They won't be the same. And you will, if things take up to a real speed, doesn't matter if it is low, medium, or high, but something, some speed, you will not recognize some things, not all things, but that depends. Low, high, medium, low, medium, high. That will make the difference in your experience. But for sure, you will observe. Here comes the difference. You will observe different behaviors, reactions, a new you, an unknown you. You will observe this, which is quite different from creating and reshaping the old you into a new one. It's completely different. Because the real spiritual work is dissolution of the observed conditionings, the observable structures that are identified as the character. And these structures are there because of worldly investments, desires, and missions for circumstantial happiness. So the intensity of meditation, the fire of meditation, starts dissolving these structures at a speed that you find difficult or almost impossible to adapt. And by non-adapting, you will observe these structures as something new, that it wasn't there. You may find it strange. Many reactions may take place in the beginning. Because as you get used to this work, you understand it, and you keep the intensity high. These are observations that just give you an insight, just a hint of, okay, so things are moving. You will not be shocked by it. You just, it's like you just open your eyes, and through that, through those interactions, you can observe the differences. You're not trying to control the differences. You don't want to be like this or like that. You're observing these differences. And you will see that in certain situations where things were more difficult, they become more fluid. It's like things have just disappeared, other things appeared. But you shouldn't concentrate on this. You just continue your work and your focus. But this is a clear indication, it gives you a clear indication that things are growing, it is alive. And that's it. Nothing else to see here. Just close your eyes again and continue intensity. It's like a big fire enters a forest. When it finishes, only ashes will remain. And the wind will take them away like there was nothing ever there. When this intensity is impossible, this control of the present structures is important, not for results as for transformation, because that is the point, is transformation through dissolution. But it's important to gain awareness of them, to observe what appears to be there at that moment. So it's important for you to know. But the real work is not mental work. Mental work is just, it's like entering a labyrinth that's always reshaping itself. Because if it wasn't reshaping, eventually you would reach the other side. But this labyrinth is constantly reshaping, because the point of it, it's not for you to find your way out, but to keep moving. So this is the point of the mind, to keep you on the move, giving you an impression that you're doing something, but eating up your time and going nowhere. The key lies in intensity. intensity. It's not as easy as it seems because you have to create a structure. So, intense periods of meditation, 10 hours a day or even more if you can, during to extend these periods as long as possible, at least 10 days. And then doing this again and again and again and again and again and again, the more as possible. And it's complicated. There are many obstacles for this. You need a structure, a discipline, timetables, technique, uh, food restriction. Everything has to be precise. And you cannot allow yourself to deviate or adapt these structures according uh, according with the mood of the day or the mood of the moment. This is very important. Doing one of these periods, many do, but continuing another one and another one and another one, that's more difficult because usually when they do one of these periods, they wait a long time, a few months, sometimes a year. And why is that? So that they can recover and adapt to that which was made. And these periods, they can be violent, yes. But that's how dissolution comes to play, through intensity. If you survive, of course. In longer periods of time, it's doable, but much more difficult. But as you go through these intense periods of stillness, of meditation practice, abstract from the world, things start to boil intensely. It's like in remodeling in construction, walls being torn apart. It's nasty sometimes. And again and again and again and again and again and again, eventually it takes off. But there are many, many, many defense mechanisms towards this. And when you understand that whatever you're observing there is a matter of opinions, ideas, and all of that, that is just useless. It is there just to condition you. And you just put yourself through these intense periods again and again, and you survive them. You will see parts of it just staying behind. And it is in intensity that the process becomes alive. Without it, you're just years and years and years and years and years of nothing. Of course, you gain something, but whatever that means. But there's still no life. You see, that kind of wisdom and vision of life, you can get it just by living. With time, wisdom comes, whatever that means. But it can be much more than that. And the real work is happening when you're observing the present structures and not recognizing them. It is new. First, mind is in front controlling things, directing, reshaping. But the real work is sitting in the fire of stillness. And that fire consumes, transforms, make it more simple, more suitable. And what you can observe is something different. It's not the fruit of your conditioning, it's something new that you are observing and not recognizing as the old. But this is just indication. It is not the purpose. It's not about transforming personality. Who cares about personality? Only when it is a nuisance and compels you here and there, this and that. But these are indications that something bigger is there present. And that it is alive. And don't need to bother about this new you, because if you keep on focusing and intensifying, it will change also. And it's just reflection. But at the same time, if you're seeing more or less the same, or whatever changes are there, you don't find it to be so much of something strange and new. That's probably the fruit of conditioning. You've become better to exert self-control, and you have reshaped, at least superficially, that personality, like a bonsai, that you put the wires around and you reshape it. So there's nothing to do with this to reshape or whatever. This is used to maintain stillness, to keep up that structure, to maintain that structure. It's like getting into an oven and the oven cooks. You just have to keep inside of the oven, keep the door closed, keep the temperature high enough, and allowing for the cooking to happen. But there has to be fire to cook, and that is intensity. And when you start these intense periods of meditation, it's like a big wall comes in front of you. A wall that sometimes seems impossible to cross over. But you are crossing it over, depending on which decisions you are taking at every moment. And if you persist, eventually you will see yourself crossing over that wall, or at least having a peek of what's on the other side. So this meditation practice where you just sit there for an hour, I'm not going to talk about 15 minutes or 20 minutes because that's nothing. But that practice where you sit for an hour every day, or 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the evening, and you just go about your normal life, that is almost nothing. Almost nothing. But if you can't do more and you're sitting that time focused on increasing it more and more, that can be the beginning of something, yes. But to make it alive, that requires much more. And everything is achievable depending on the amount of focus that you give to it. But as always, you cannot focus on your spiritual practice and on your worldly investments at the same time. So as you are embracing one, you're letting go of the other, and vice versa. And like I said, it is the choices that you make that reveal the path ahead of you. Because the path which is stretching in front of you is not the only one possible, but it is the only possible for you according to the decisions you have been making so far. So giving it intensity enough and thinking, well, they are probably real thinking, not mental noise. They are probably as difficult because real thinking is very difficult. You're not wired to do that. Consumes a lot of energy. So this is why thoughts just move in the same old direction because it's much more easy. And entering these intense periods, it is anti-natural. What is anti-natural? It's not something which is a general term. It is what's natural for you. So you tend to avoid it, defend from it, from many levels. This is just superficial level. But understand that if you're really, really searching for liberation, intensity is the first gate. Without intensity, nothing much is changing. You can only see this and that, but that's nothing. Okay, so if there's no more questions, we will end for today. So next satsang will be probably Saturday, 9:30 in the morning, Brazilian time, UTC -3. Until then, make the best use of your time. Make it real.